So the body graph, it shows our cosmic signature is another way that I've seen it put, and that is like our unique circuitry. The body graph is the picture that's like at the very center of your chart, the crazy picture that has everything on it. And we're going to break it all down. And there's actually a full body graph and a simplified body graph. And what you have in front of you, if you pulled it from the side I gave you, is the simplified body graph. And I am going to show the full body graph just to see how it works, just so you can see more into how do all of these different things come together. And when I say different things, we're talking about planetary placements, which is like ancient Vedic astrology, the I Ching, the gates and channels system, the Kabbalah tree of life, which are the chakras or the energy centers, which are what we're going to look at today. And that full body graph is really something to behold. It's truly beautiful, I think, at how it brings together so many different pieces of information and so simplifies our unique circuitry. So this is the full body graph. I've already labeled planets because out of this whole picture, what you see here, the only thing that moves for us as individuals are the planets. So as the planets go around and we're coming in our unique timing and location, that is what changes, and that is our cosmic signature. So when we say cosmic signature, we mean the arrangement of the planets as you made your entry into your life. And so that's the piece that's moving, and based on where those planets land is what activates the rest of this. So we'll start here on the right under planets. So based on where the planet lands, so this guy right here is Venus, he landed in gate 6. So that means that gate 6 is activated. And each gate you see lives inside one of the astrological signs. So those are the same, like if you're familiar with your natal chart, this wheel is the same wheel that you have in your natal chart, and the planets land in the same spot as what you see in your natal chart. So again, that's how it kind of brings in the astrology piece. And then wrapped around the very outside of this wheel, these images on the very outside, those are the I Ching I Ching hexagrams. I am not familiar with I Ching a whole lot, very, very high level superficial awareness of what it means. I have had one I Ching reading. It was extremely cool. And so I've heard some of those like hexagram descriptions and the predictive nature of them. And basically all of that is baked in, like you see here, for example, gate 22 has a specific associated hexagram. So that hexagram's description is baked into what gate 22 represents. And so that's kind of how that piece of it works. And then inside the body graph itself are the energy centers or the chakras that they're modeled after. So the simplified body graph has just this piece right here. So this is where if you did get your chart from where I sent you on that site, this is what your chart looks like. And very first, to begin to understand the simplified body graph, we're going to differentiate between red and black. So you see red and black lines on your body graph. And on the left, there's a red column. And on the right, there is a black column. So these two lists are your planetary placements. And on the right, the black column called personality, those are the planetary placements from the date of your birth. And on the left, the design column, those are the planetary placements 88 days prior to your birth. So that's what the two different columns mean. And again, starting on the right, so the date of your birth, your personality is your conscious self. So as you study your chart, just know that any of those black lines or the personality placements, those are more like roads that you can see on top of the ground. You can see that energy moving within you. You're aware of it. You know yourself to be that way. And then on the other side of it, the red side, that is our unconscious self or our subconscious self. So those are more like tunnels that exist under the ground, and we use them to flow energy, albeit somewhat unknowingly to ourselves. So that's something to be aware of. So as you read about those design placements and those gates that are activated by those planetary placements 88 days prior to your birth, just know that those are tunnels. Those are going to be subconscious traits within you that may or may not resonate as far as like you consciously understand that about yourself. If you've done a lot of work on self-awareness and understanding who you really are and your authentic self, then you probably will recognize these design themes the same as you do your personality. So just keep that in mind. And I was going to say something else there. I'm sure it'll come back to me when it's right. So moving on here to dig into a little bit deeper, what is in these two columns? So we said they're the planetary placements. On the outside edge of each column is the symbols for the planets themselves. So again, if you're familiar with your natal chart, these are the same symbols. And the only one that you may or may not see in your natal chart, depending on how you cast your chart, is the second one, the circle with the cross in it. That is the symbol for Earth. So that is, it's a pretty big player here in your human design chart. And then the numbers next to each planet, those are the gates that were activated by where that planet landed. So if you go back to the full body graph, here's Venus, and it activated gate 6. So when we look on that list on the other slide, when we look next to Venus, we'll see that it activated gate 6. Okay. So centers, we've already said those are where we generate our own energy and we flow that energy within ourselves. And it's also where we perceive energy. It's where and how we direct the flow of our energy. Gates and channels are two other words that you'll hear a lot in human design. This is how we are determining which centers are defined and which ones are open. So if you look between, or if you look at like the throat center here, for example, all of these numbers on the throat center are different gates that belong to the throat center. So again, we're in the territory of this is always defined like this. And the only thing that changes is where the planets were when we were born. So everybody's throat center has these same gates on it. These gates serve as doorways, entry points into that energy center, different opportunities for that energy center to be activated. And every single one of these gates, by way of a channel, is talking to a different energy center. So for example, this channel here, channel 45 to 21, connects the throat and the heart. While this channel right here, 31 to 7, connects the throat center to the identity center. So those specific channels are always defined on the chart, same for everybody. And then based on where the planets were, that's which of the gates are now circled in purple. Those are the activated gates. And to define a channel, you have to have both ends of that channel activated. So for example, activated gates, that's where the planets are. Those are the purple ones. Defined channels are having both ends activated. And defined centers mean that there's a complete channel between those two centers. So for example, this right here, in this particular human design chart, this is the only defined channel in the entire chart, is this one between 12 and 22, gates 12 and 22. And you see that the whole channel is black. And so we know that both ends of the channel, so gate 12 and gate 22, were both activated by planets on the date of birth. So they're both coming from that black side. And so here we see that it was the sun that activated gate 12, and that it's the north node that activates gate 22. And so because of that, this channel, gate 12 to 22, is defined. And because that channel is defined, the energy centers on both ends of it, the throat and the solar plexus, are also defined. So in this particular chart, all of these other centers are white because there's no continuous channel of energy between any of them. So for example, like you see here in the root center, these three gates are all activated. So they reach out, they generate energy, but it's not going anywhere. It's not being received by the spleen, which is over here. I would need to have, or this chart would need to have one of these three centers, one of these three gates activated in order to receive the energy that the root center is attempting to put out into the system. The root center is generating energy, but it isn't being received in the rest of the system in this particular chart. So we're teaching you how to fish here. So what you would do with that is to Google channel 1222 human design. And I did that by just saying, this is a channel, this is defined, and I want the numbers on either end of it. Like I said, each of these channels is always the same. So for example, channel 1222 is the channel of openness. Another example, channel 2034 is the channel of charisma. So there's all of these different channels that exist that are ways that we all flow energy unique to us. And so you can research that entire channel and see, again, it's like reading about your life, see the challenges that you're likely to face and the tools for how to overcome that and make the most of that energy. You can also break it down even further to Google Gate 12 human design and Gate 22 human design. And in that sense, like when you read about Gate 12, it's going to talk about the throat center because that's where it belongs. It's an entry into the throat, which is a manifestation center. We're going to get into all of that. When you read about Gate 22, you're going to read about your solar plexus and your emotions, and it's going to put it into the perspective of that. And when you read about the channel as a whole, it's going to tell you how does the energy get generated in the motor, the solar plexus, that emotional energy travels to the throat and is spoken and is manifested. So that channel would explain to you how that happens. So it's so cool.